The boutique staff mocked a scruffy-looking man and refused to serve him, assuming he was poor and out of place. Their laughter died when he revealed he was Keanu Reeves, the secret owner of the store. That day, they learned the hard way that judging people by appearances can cost you everything. Some days life quietly sets up a test for you, and you don't even notice until it's already happening. That's exactly what kind of day it was for Maya when the stranger in the torn jacket walked into Aurora Atelier. The rain had been falling over downtown all morning, soft and gray, turning the glass storefront into a giant, shimmering mirror. Inside, everything looked expensive and perfect. Golden lights washed over rows of designer suits, silk dresses, and shoes that cost more than Maya's monthly rent. She straightened a row of jackets for the third time, trying to ignore the dull ache in her feet and the voice in her head counting down how many hours were left in her shift. Maya loved clothes, but she didn't belong to the world that bought them. She'd grown up in a small apartment over a noisy street, sharing a single bedroom with her younger brother. Her mother was home now, fighting through another round of chemotherapy, and this job, this polished glass and gold luxury store, was the only reason the bills were even close to paid. Every sale mattered. Every minute she spent with a customer was money measured against medication and rent. That was the quiet pressure sitting in her chest as she forced a customer service smile onto her tired face. "Team, remember," Clara's voice sliced through the soft background music. "High-value clients only. We just got the email this morning, new majority owner. He could walk in any day, maybe any minute. I want this place shining." Clara, the store manager, stood near the central display like she owned the air in the room. Perfect bun, sharp blazer, heels that announced every step. To her, kindness was something you showed to someone who could buy 3 suits without checking the price tag. Everyone else was a distraction. Ethan leaned on the counter, adjusting his tie in the glass. He flashed Myra a quick grin, the kind that always carried a joke behind it. "If the new owner is rich and single, I call first introduction," he whispered as Clara turned away. Maya laughed under her breath. Ethan could be shallow, always chasing commissions and compliments, but he was the only one who'd stayed late to help her close last week when her mom called crying from the hospital. There was more heart in him than he let people see. On the floor, business moved like a movie montage. A nervous groom tried on 3 different tuxedos while his fiancée filmed him, arguing about bow tie versus tie. An influencer complained that cream was emotionally different from ivory. A businessman barked at his assistant while throwing down a black card. If you've ever worked in retail, you know that strange mix of comedy and stress, laughing with customers on the outside while your mind runs numbers on the inside. In between customers, Maya slipped into the stockroom to text her mom. "How are you feeling? Need anything?" Her mom replied almost at once, as if she'd been holding the phone and waiting. "Just you coming home safe, Beta. Don't skip lunch, I know you." Maya smiled, swallowed the sudden sting behind her eyes, and shoved her phone back into her pocket. Skipping lunch meant saving money. It also meant feeling light and a little shaky as the hours crawled by, but she was used to that now. When she pushed the door open and stepped back onto the sales floor, the store had gone strangely quiet. The music was still playing, the lights still soft and warm, but there was a new tension in the air, like static right before lightning. The glass doors hissed, shut behind a man who had just walked in from the rain. He didn't look like anyone who usually set off alarms in Aurora Atelier. No tailored coat, no glossy briefcase, no wristwatch that could pay for a car. He wore a faded green jacket with frayed cuffs, a dark beanie pulled low, and a backpack that had clearly lived a hard life. His boots were scuffed, his jeans worn pale at the knees. His t-shirt looked like it had lost a fight with motor oil and a washing machine that gave up halfway. He paused just inside the doorway, dripping quietly onto the polished marble floor, and took in the store with a calm, unhurried gaze. "Are you serious?" Paige, one of the senior stylists, muttered from behind a rack of dresses. "Did we just turn into a shelter?" Leo snorted a laugh. Maybe he's lost, or maybe he thought this was the food court. Their whispers were low, but in the crisp, expensive silence of the store, they cut like glass. Ethan smirked, trying to look entertained without being cruel, but even that half-smile made something twist uncomfortably in Maya's chest. Clara's eyes narrowed like she'd just spotted a stain on a white carpet. "Maya," she said sharply, without looking away from the man. "Handle it, politely. We're not a museum and we're not a charity. Don't waste time." Maya's stomach tightened. She knew what handle it meant. Escort him out, quickly and quietly, before any of the real customers felt uncomfortable. Before corporate sent down another email about protecting the brand image. But something about the way the man stood there made it hard for her to move. It wasn't his clothes or his hair. It was the way he carried himself. He didn't look nervous or out of place or ashamed. He stood like someone who had spent most of his life in rooms like this and didn't care if anyone believed it. Still, she needed this job. Her mom needed this job. Maya smoothed her blazer, took a slow breath, and walked toward him. "Hi," she said, her voice gentle. "Welcome to Aurora Atelier. Can I get you anything? A towel, maybe? It's really coming down out there." He turned to her, and that was the first thing that threw her off. His eyes were tired but warm, the kind of warm that carried a history of late nights and heavy thoughts. For a moment, she had the strangest feeling that she knew him. From a screen, from somewhere far away from this polished floor and these perfect jackets. But the idea was too ridiculous to finish forming, so she pushed it away. "Thanks," he said in a calm, deep voice that carried easily in the quiet store. "I'm fine, just a little rain. I was hoping to look at a suit, something simple, black, clean lines." Maya blinked. Most people who walked in here started with a price tag or a brand name. He started with shape and feeling. That already put him in a different category than the staff had given him. "Of course," she said, slipping into professional mode but keeping her tone kind. "Do you have a budget in mind?" He smiled a little, not offended, more amused. "Let's say, don't worry about that part yet. Show me what you think is worth more than it looks." The line caught her off guard. Worth more than it looks, not most expensive or best-selling. She felt a quiet spark of respect. Behind her, she could sense eyes on her back. Paige and Leo were watching, trading little smirks. Clara stood near the register, arms folded, pretending to organize receipts while tracking every move. Ethan hovered by a mirror, trying to act casual but clearly curious. Maya led the man toward a row of classic black suits. As they walked, she noticed things she hadn't from a distance. His hands were rough, scarred in a few places, but steady. There were deep, faint lines at the corners of his eyes, the kind that come from squinting into bright light or from laughing a lot, or maybe both. When they passed a mirror, he barely glanced at his reflection. She pulled a suit from the rack. "This one is our most timeless cut," she said. "Italian wool, hand-stitched. It's lighter than it looks and it won't wrinkle easily. Good for pretty much anything, really." He ran his fingers over the fabric, thoughtful. "Feels like something you could live a whole other life in," he murmured. "Weddings, funerals, interviews, premieres, apologies." The word premieres snagged on her thoughts like a fishhook. She studied him again from the corner of her eye. The beard, the hair under the beanie, the tired but gentle eyes. For one long, impossible second, an image flashed in her mind. Movie posters, red carpets, a face the whole world knew wearing 3 different decades of haircuts. No, it couldn't be. "Maya," Clara's voice snapped from across the store, making her jump. "A moment." Maya glanced at the man. "Excuse me," she said softly. He nodded, still studying the suit as if he had all the time in the world. She walked over to the register, feeling eyes on her again. Clara didn't lower her voice this time. "What are you doing?" she hissed. "You've already spent 5 minutes on this. He's not buying anything. Look at him." Maya swallowed. "He asked for a suit. He hasn't done anything wrong. And I'm asking you to stop wasting my payroll." Clara flicked a glance toward the man. "If he tries something on, it's going to smell like rain and engine oil. Then what? We mark it down? No, give him a catalog if you must and move on. Ethan just flagged a client who asked for 3 tuxes, priorities." Paige leaned against the counter, pretending to scroll through her phone. "Maybe we should call security," she said with a little laugh. "He's staring at the stitching like it's a puzzle." Leo added, "Yeah, he looks like he borrowed that jacket from a lost and found box. I don't want him near the couture section." Maya felt heat rise in her chest. There were 100 replies on the tip of her tongue, most of them dangerous to her employment. You don't know his story. You don't know what's in his bank account. You don't know who he is. Instead, she took a breath that felt heavier than it should have. "I'll be quick," she said. "If he's not serious, I'll handle it." Clara stared at her for a beat, then nodded sharply. "2 more minutes, then I want you on the floor with paying clients. Understood?" Maya turned away before her expression betrayed anything. As she walked back, she heard Paige whisper, "Watch, she's going to offer to steam his jacket next," followed by a choked giggle from Leo. She pretended not to hear them, but her shoulders tightened. Back at the suits, the man was still there, coat slightly damp, fingers resting lightly on the hanger as if he were listening to the fabric breathe. When he saw her, his face softened. "Sorry about that," she said. "My manager just likes to stay involved." "I noticed," he replied, a trace of humor in his voice. "You work under pressure." "You have no idea," she said before she could stop herself, then bit back a laugh. "Would you like to try this one on? I can set up a fitting room." "Yeah," he said. "I'd like that, and thanks for talking to me like I belong here." The simple sentence landed heavier than it should have. Maybe because she'd heard the whispers. Maybe because he had too. Maya opened a fitting room and hung the suit carefully. As he stepped inside and closed the curtain, she caught a glimpse of his reflection in the mirror across from them. For just a flicker of a second, with the beanie tilted back and the jacket open, that impossible image came surging back: films, fight scenes, interviews. A face that had cried on screen, bled on screen, saved cities on screen. It wasn't logical, it didn't make sense, but her heart started beating faster anyway. While he changed, Clara gathered the others near the counter. They thought they were being subtle. They weren't. "So," Paige said, voice low but carrying, "what's our plan when he comes out and starts asking for discounts?" Leo mimed pulling out his phone. "I'll grab a pic for the group chat when the thrift store loses one." Ethan didn't laugh this time. He stared at the fitting room door, jaw tight, then looked away when he caught Maya's eye, like he was ashamed of being curious. Maya wanted to say something, anything, but the curtain rings clinked softly, announcing movement. The man stepped out of the fitting room wearing the black suit, still barefoot in his old boots, beanie on his head. And for a split second, the entire store went silent. The suit fit him almost perfectly, hanging from his shoulders with that effortless weight only great tailoring gives. The contrast between the sharp, clean lines of the jacket and his rough boots and tired eyes did something strange to the air, like the room itself couldn't decide who it was looking at. A stranger, a drifter, or someone they should have recognized long before he put the suit on. Paige let out a small, sarcastic whistle. "Wow," she said under her breath. "From mechanic to slightly more expensive mechanic." Leo laughed too loudly. "Maybe we should check if he can pay before we waste any more time." The man heard them. Maya saw it in the small pause he took, the tiny shift in his shoulders. He didn't flinch, didn't snap back, but something in his eyes changed, went deeper, quieter, more distant. Maya's throat tightened. I'm sorry about them," she whispered, stepping closer so only he could hear. "They're not." He raised a hand, stopping her apology. Then he turned slowly to face the rest of the staff. With one easy motion, he pulled the beanie off his head, letting his dark hair fall around his face. The harsh store lights caught the angles of his jaw, the familiar shape of his mouth, the eyes the whole world had watched on a giant screen more than once. When he spoke, his voice was calm but carried straight across the room, leaving nowhere for anyone to hide. "Tell me," he said, looking directly at Clara, "is this how you usually welcome guests in your store?" Silence held the room for a long, stretched second, the kind that makes every heartbeat feel twice as loud. Clara opened her mouth, then closed it again when the man's gaze stayed fixed on her, calm but unflinching. Behind the counter, Paige straightened as if she'd just remembered she was on camera. Leo slid his phone into his pocket without looking down. Even Ethan, usually quick with a joke, stared like his brain had frozen mid-thought. "Of course," Clara said finally, her voice cool but a little tight. "We welcome everyone. We just try to focus on clients who are ready to purchase." The man tilted his head, studying her. Without the beanie, more of his face was visible, and now even the harsh store lighting couldn't blur the truth. Maya watched realization move through the room like a wave. First, Ethan's eyes widened. Then Paige's jaw dropped just a fraction. Leo squinted as if his brain was racing through movie titles. You could almost hear the click when it landed. "Wait," Paige whispered, barely breathing the word. "No way." The man gave a small, knowing half-smile. "People usually recognize me faster when I'm wearing a suit on a red carpet instead of boots in a rainy store." Maya felt her breath catch. There it was. Not a ridiculous fantasy her brain had made up, but reality standing 3 feet away from the clearance rack. Keanu Reeves. Keanu Reeves in a slightly damp t-shirt, wearing a suit she'd just chosen, looking at them like he was the one evaluating them, not the other way around. Ethan actually choked. Are you?" Keanu nodded politely, almost shy. "Yeah, I'm Keanu. Nice to meet you." His gaze flicked around the room. "Officially, I'm just here as a customer. Unofficially," he paused, eyes landing on Maya for a beat that made her stomach flip. "I'm here to see something else." The store door opened with a soft hiss and the mall security guard, Ravi, stepped in, slightly out of breath. "Hey, we got a call about a possible disturbance. Someone loitering." He saw Keanu's face, stopped dead, and blinked. Oh, okay, I've seen all your movies, man." Keanu's expression softened. "Thanks, brother, there's no disturbance, just a conversation." Ravi glanced nervously at Clara. "Manager said." "I said we needed to protect the store," Clara cut in quickly, pasting on a bright smile that was a little too wide. "But everything is perfectly fine now. We're honored to have you here, Mr. Reeves." Her voice dripped with sudden sugar. It made Maya feel a little sick. Keanu studied her not unkindly, but like someone who had seen this exact switch too many times before. "Interesting how fast the welcome changes," he murmured. "All it took was a name." Paige let out a weak laugh. "You should have told us who you were," she said, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "We would have rolled out a literal red carpet." Leo jumped in, words tumbling over each other. "Yeah, man, we were just joking, you know. We mess around all the time. It's just store humor, nothing serious." Maya watched Keanu's face as they spoke. He didn't look angry exactly. He looked tired. The way someone looks when they've seen this scene play out too many times. Mockery that turns into flattery the second money or fame walks into the frame. He turned back to Maya, his voice quieter. "Did you know?" he asked. "Or were you just being kind?" Maya swallowed, aware of everyone staring at her. I had a feeling, but I wasn't sure. It didn't really matter. You asked for help, that was enough." Something in his eyes warmed at that, a small light pushing back some of the tiredness. "That's rare," he said softly. "Thank you." Clara stepped forward, trying to reclaim control. "Mr. Reeves, I apologize for any misunderstanding. Our staff was only trying to follow my instructions. I'm sure you understand that in a high-end environment, we have to be selective with our time. We're under a lot of pressure, too." "Pressure doesn't cost you your humanity," Keanu replied, no anger in his tone, only a steady certainty. "You don't have to humiliate people to do your job." The way he said it cut deeper than if he'd raised his voice. Maya felt her throat tighten. She thought of the nights she'd gone home after a shift and cried quietly so her mom wouldn't hear, replaying every customer who'd treated her like furniture. She thought of how easy it would be to become like that, to pass the cruelty down the ladder. Ethan shifted his weight. "He's right," he said, surprising even himself. We were out of line, Clara. I was out of line, laughing along. That's not what we're supposed to be." Clara shot him a sharp look. "Ethan, this is not the time." "It's exactly the time," Keanu said. "Because this isn't about me. I can walk into any store in this mall and get treated like royalty once they recognize me. I'll be fine. But the next man who walks in wearing a jacket like mine, who doesn't happen to be famous, he's the one who's going to remember how you made him feel." Those words settled over the room like dust after an explosion. No one moved. Keanu adjusted the cuffs of the suit jacket, testing the fabric, then looked at Maya again. "There's another reason I'm here," he said, "not just for a suit." Her heart skipped. "There is." He nodded slowly. But that's a conversation we shouldn't be having out here on the sales floor. His gaze slid briefly to Clara. Why don't we all go to your office? The staff, too. I like people to hear things directly. Clara hesitated. Well, usually we reserve back office meetings for management only, and we have customers on the floor and... I'll only take a few minutes, Keanu said politely, but his tone carried a weight that made arguing sound ridiculous. I promise it'll be worth your time. He started toward the back hallway without waiting for permission, every step in the black suit quiet but confident. Maya felt the air in the room shift as everyone looked at Clara, waiting to see what she would do. For the first time since Maya had started working here, Clara looked unsure. Fine, she said, grabbing the key from her pocket. 5 minutes, everyone in the office, now. As Maya followed Keanu down the hallway, past framed black and white photos of models in perfect clothing, she felt like she was walking into a scene that would change the rest of her life. She had no idea yet that the man in front of her was about to drop a truth that would flip her world, and the entire store, completely upside down. The back office felt even smaller than usual, a cramped rectangle of beige walls, filing cabinets, and a fake plant that had given up pretending years ago. It smelled faintly of printer ink and cold coffee. Usually only Clara and maybe Ethan squeezed in there for inventory reports or quiet scoldings. Now all of them were packed shoulder to shoulder around the desk while Keanu stood near the window, still in the black suit, the rain streaking silver lines down the glass behind him. Clara took her seat like a shield, folding her hands on the desk, trying for composed authority. All right, she said. We're here. What is this about? Keanu didn't sit. He leaned back against the filing cabinet, crossing his arms casually, as if this were just another film set discussion. But there was nothing scripted in his eyes. I've been looking into some new places lately, he began. Not just to spend money, but to invest it. I've been thinking a lot about how businesses treat people who can't do anything for them. It says more than any slogan on a wall. Paige shifted, uncomfortable. We treat people fine, she said quickly. Most of the time, anyway. Most of the time is easy, Keanu replied. Anyone can be nice when they think someone is rich or famous or useful. The test is when you think you're looking at someone who can't give you anything back. He let that hang in the air for a moment. Maya felt her face grow hot. Ethan stared at the floor. Leo picked at a hangnail, his usual smirk nowhere to be found. We were joking, Leo muttered finally. No one got hurt. Maya couldn't help it. The words tore out of her. People do get hurt, she said, softer but firm. You don't see it because they walk out and never come back. You didn't see the kid last week who tried on a jacket and heard you call him budget boy under your breath. He heard you. I watched his whole face change. The office went still. Leo flushed, opening his mouth, then closing it. Keanu looked at Maya with a kind of quiet appreciation. What's your name? He asked. Maya. How long have you worked here, Maya? Almost a year, she said. Since my mom got sick, I took extra shifts so we could keep up with her treatments. She hadn't meant to say that last part out loud, but it was there now, hanging in the room with everything else. Clara sighed like the personal detail annoyed her. Mr. Reeves, I'm very sorry if our internal culture didn't meet your expectations during your test. But this is a high-pressure environment. We have targets. We have image standards. I was just following corporate policy when I asked my staff to focus on higher-value clients. Was mocking me part of the policy? Keanu asked gently. Or was that extra? Clara's mouth pressed into a thin line. Paige spoke up, voice sharper than usual. So what now? You post a video about us. Call us out online? We lose our jobs because we had one bad day and you walked in dressed like that. This isn't about social media, Keanu said. I didn't come here to cancel anyone. I came here to see if this was a place I should be connected to. Maya frowned, confused. Connected how? Keanu exhaled slowly, like someone about to jump into cold water. A few months ago, he said, a friend of mine asked if I wanted to put some money into a fashion group, not just as a silent investor, but with some voice in how things are run. I told him I'd think about it. If it ever happened, I wanted to make sure the stores were places I'd actually feel okay walking into, dressed exactly like this. He tapped his worn boot against the floor for emphasis. Ethan's eyes widened. "Wait," he said slowly. "Are you saying?" Keanu nodded once. "Last week the deal went through. Papers signed, lawyers happy, lots of boring meetings with coffee that tastes like regret." A small ripple of nervous laughter moved through the room despite the tension. "That fashion group owns several brands. One of them," he glanced up at the Aurora Atelier logo framed on the wall, "is this one." The room felt suddenly smaller. You're an investor?" Clara asked carefully. "More than that," he replied. "They gave me a large stake in this branch and a say in how it's managed. Think of it like being a quiet partner who can stop being quiet whenever he wants." The floor seemed to tilt under Maya's feet. This wasn't just a surprise visit from a celebrity story anymore. This was her boss's boss's boss standing 3 feet away in a suit she'd picked out, after being treated like nothing by the very people he now, technically, outranked. Ethan gave a strained little laugh. So this was an undercover boss situation. "I don't like that show," Keanu said simply. "It makes people perform kindness because they think there's a prize. I wanted to see what happens when there's no prize." "And now you've seen it," Maya said quietly. Keanu looked at her. "Yeah," he said, "I have." Clara straightened, her voice going into damage control mode. "Mr. Reeves, I understand your concerns and I admit what you witnessed was not ideal. But I promise you with the right guidance this team can reflect your values. We can fix this. Just tell us what you want changed and we'll make it happen." For a moment, Keanu didn't answer. He turned his head and stared out the small office window, watching people move in the mall below, shopping bags swinging, couples laughing, a janitor pushing a cart. When he spoke again, his voice was softer, thoughtful. "You know what I remember most?" he said. "Years ago, before all this," he gestured vaguely at himself, the fame, the movies, the suit. "I walked into a restaurant after a long night shoot. I was dirty, exhausted, clothes smelled like smoke from set. The host looked me up and down and told me the place was full. I could see empty tables behind her. She lied because she didn't like how I looked. 10 minutes later, a guy in a suit walked in. She gave him the best table in the house." He looked around at the cramped office, his gaze landing one by one on each of them. That kind of moment stays with you, not because you go hungry, because you learn exactly what you're worth to people when they think no one's watching. Nobody spoke. Even Clara had lost her smooth phrases. "In this store," he went on, "I saw people laugh at someone they thought was beneath them. I saw one person," he nodded toward Maya, "decide that kindness is not about who's watching, it's about who you are." Maya's cheeks burned. She wasn't used to being seen like this, especially not by someone the world watched so closely. "So here's what's going to happen," Keanu said, standing up straight. The casual slouch dropped away. He suddenly looked every inch like a man who'd played generals, warriors, and leaders. "I'm not here to punish for the sake of punishment, but I am here to change things." Clara braced herself. "What kind of changes?" she asked. Keanu's eyes met hers, then moved deliberately over to Maya, to Ethan, to the rest of the team. "The kind," he said, "that start with deciding who belongs in this room and who doesn't." The words hit like a soft hammer, shaking the ground without raising his voice. The air in the office turned heavy, as if someone had closed a door on the oxygen. Maya could hear her own heartbeat in her ears. Ethan stood very still, hands clenched at his sides, for once with no easy joke to reach for. Paige looked like she wanted to sink into the floor. Leo's face had gone a blotchy red. Clara swallowed, her composure finally cracking. "Mr. Reeves, with all due respect, store staffing decisions are my responsibility. I've worked hard to keep this location in the black. I may have pushed too hard sometimes, but—" "Profit without respect isn't success," Keanu interrupted softly. "It's just numbers covering up damage." He stepped away from the filing cabinet, walking slowly around the cramped room, not pacing, just drifting with purpose. When he stopped, he was next to Maya. "First," he said, "I want to talk about who does belong here." Maya's throat tightened. She forced herself to meet his eyes. "You treated me like a person when everyone else treated me like a problem," he said. You listened, you didn't rush, you apologized for things that weren't your fault. That's more valuable to me than any sales pitch." He glanced at Clara. "How long has she been an associate?" "Almost a year," Clara said carefully. "She's fine, reliable." "Reliable is what people call you when they don't see how much you're carrying," Keanu said. "What are you making?" he asked Maya suddenly. She blinked. Base is 14 an hour plus commission when we have sales." "Do you want to stay here?" he asked. "At this store in this job?" The question shocked her more than anything else that day. No one in management had ever asked what she wanted. They only asked what she could handle. She thought of her mom's pill organizer, the bills stacked under a chipped mug in the kitchen, the way her brother pretended everything was fine but flinched every time the phone rang. She thought of how exhausted she was, but also of the tiny sparks of joy she still felt when she helped a shy kid find the right jacket or watched someone stand taller in a mirror. I don't know if I want to stay in this version of it," she said honestly. "But I like helping people feel like they matter. I like being part of someone's big day, or even just making a hard day a little lighter." Keanu smiled, warm and real. "That's the heart of good service," he said. "Not pushing product, lifting people." He turned to Clara. "You've had a year to notice that in her. You didn't. So here's one of the changes. As of today, Maya is no longer just an associate. I want her trained as an assistant floor lead. Higher base, better commission structure. She'll help shape how customers are treated from the moment they walk in, no matter what they look like." The room seemed to blur for a second. Maya gripped the back of a chair to steady herself. Promotion. Higher pay. The words felt unreal, like something she'd hear in someone else's success story, not her own life. Clara's eyes flashed. "You can't just walk in here and—" "I can," Keanu said quietly. "Because I'm not a guest in this office. I own enough of this company to decide how it treats people." The sentence landed like a quiet explosion. Even after everything he'd already said, hearing it that plainly made everyone's posture shift. There was no playing this off anymore as a celebrity tantrum or a PR stunt. This was the new reality. "And Ethan," Keanu continued, turning to him, "you laughed, you didn't stand up, but you also spoke up when it mattered, even knowing it might make things awkward with your boss. That counts for something." Ethan looked stunned. I should have done more," he said. "I've seen stuff before and just let it slide. I'm not proud of that." "Being honest about who you were is the first step to deciding who you want to be," Keanu said. "You can stay, but I expect you to back up people like Maya when they try to do the right thing, not just when it's safe. Deal?" Ethan nodded, eyes bright. "Deal." Then came the harder part. Keanu turned to Paige and Leo. They both straightened, bracing themselves. "You two," he said gently, "are good at reading people. You know exactly which details to highlight, how to flatter, how to close. That's a skill. But you've been using it like a weapon, not a gift." Paige swallowed, mascara suddenly looking too dark on her pale face. It's this job. Everyone expects you to be perfect and glamorous, and sometimes you cope by making jokes. Ugly ones. I know that's not an excuse." Leo stared at the floor. "My dad used to say if you're not the one laughing, you're the one being laughed at," he muttered. "I guess I believed him." "That's a false choice someone hurt put in your head," Keanu said. "You don't have to choose between being the target or the bully. There's a third option, be the person who stops the joke." He took a breath, weighing something invisible in his hands. "I'm not going to fire you today, not because you don't deserve a serious consequence, but because I don't believe shame changes people. Responsibility does." Paige blinked. We can stay." "You can stay on probation," he said. "Mandatory empathy training, real community work, volunteering, not just writing checks. I'll organize it with HR. And every time someone walks into this store looking less than perfect, you'll remember how it felt to stand in this room and know a stranger saw the worst in you and still chose to give you a second chance." Leo exhaled, shoulders shaking. I don't know if I deserve that." "No one deserves grace," Keanu said softly. "That's why it changes you when you get it." Finally, he faced Clara. Out of everyone, she looked the most rattled, but her pride kept trying to hold the pieces together. "Let me guess. she said with a brittle laugh. Probation for me too, extra training, a stern warning from corporate. Keanu studied her, not gloating, just seeing. You are efficient, he said. You know margins, numbers, targets, you keep this place profitable. But somewhere along the way, you decided that hitting goals was more important than how you hit them. You turned fear into a management style. Fear gets results, she shot back. This is retail, not a meditation retreat. Fear gets short-term obedience, he replied. Respect gets long-term loyalty from staff and customers. He paused, and in that pause, Maya felt something shift. This was different from how he'd spoken to the others. He wasn't just correcting, he was deciding. Clara, he said, I don't think you're a bad person. I think you're someone who survived in a harsh system by becoming harsher. But I can't have that guiding this store anymore. Not if I want it to be the kind of place I can be proud of. The words that came next felt heavy even before he said them. I'm going to ask corporate to move you out of this role, he said. You can stay with the company if you want, in a back office position where your skills with numbers can shine. But your time as store manager here is over. It was like watching a mirror crack. For a moment, Clara's whole face rearranged itself. Shock, anger, humiliation, something like grief. Then, under all of that, something else flickered. A tiny, painful hint of relief. You're demoting me, she whispered. I'm asking you to stop being the person who has to be cruel to survive, Keanu answered. You don't have to like me for it, but one day I hope you'll be grateful you don't wake up with this weight on your chest anymore. No one moved. Maya felt a complicated ache in her chest. She hadn't liked Clara, she'd been afraid of her. But watching someone lose the identity they'd built their life around was still brutal. Clara looked at Maya, eyes sharp and wounded. And she replaces me? She asked bitterly. The saint of customer service. Maya flinched. I can't be manager, she said quickly. I don't know anything about budgets or schedules or... You're not replacing her, Keanu said. You're becoming part of something new. This store will have a different kind of leadership structure, shared responsibility. I'll bring in someone experienced who understands both business and empathy. You'll learn from them. One day, if you want to, you could be manager, but we'll build you up to that, not throw you in the fire. He checked his watch, then looked around the small, crowded space. I know this is a lot, he said, but I came here today for a reason. I'm tired of systems that reward cruelty and call it professionalism. I want this place to prove that kindness and profit can live in the same room. Ravi, the security guard, cleared his throat from the doorway where he'd been standing quietly the whole time. Mr. Reeves, there's a line forming outside. People are seeing you through the glass. Some of them are crying. Keanu sighed, a little amused, a little resigned. Okay, he said. I'll go out and say hi in a minute. He turned back to Maya. Before I do you have a break coming up? She blinked. Technically, yeah, but we're short-staffed and with everything happening. You need to take it, he said gently. Come outside with me for a minute, fresh air. I want to show you something. Maya glanced at the others. Ethan nodded at her, a small, encouraging smile on his face. Paige and Leo looked stunned but said nothing. Clara stared down at her hands as if they belonged to someone else now. With her heart pounding and 100 questions stacking up in her mind, Maya stepped out of the office behind Keanu, not knowing that the next thing he showed her would be even more important than the promotion or the demotions or the shocked faces they were leaving behind.